Welcome to the Partners Podcast, where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to entrepreneurs who are relentlessly building real, profitable companies. Join us as we ask them the hard questions so you can take away the mindset, strategy, and tactics that launch them to success. Welcome to another episode of the Partners Podcast. Here today with Dave Gershman of Real Producers and formerly Vertical Bird, RIP.
RIP. Oh, RIP. Hey, Brendan.
We can start there, Dave. You haven't had the easiest journey in real estate media. You've had your ups and downs. You've had your personal challenges. Talk me through, how did you get started, and what you kind of rose like the phoenix, and then you also, got burned is it Icarus or whoever that god was who flew too close to the sun, and then you're building back up, and you're rolling a boulder up the hill, kind of in many ways, and also you have the advantages of working with some gods out here at Acre Partners to help you get there a little bit faster.
I'm lucky for the gods. I'm super grateful to have the gods at Acre Partner to help me out. It's been great. But yeah, I was fucked. So I started Vertical Bird, which was a Washington, D.C. real estate media venture back in 2021. Before that, I was working with Paul Charette at Flylisted, who's now still at Flylisted, but also a very prominent Acre coach, whom I have a lot of respect for. He's awesome, just like you. Was working with him, went down to DC, found an opportunity to build Vertical Bird, did that for 2 years, and at some point sort of realized, and again, through, the work with Acre, couldn't have asked for more, couldn't have asked for more support in helping build the company because, we really did numbers down there, and it was me and a couple employees, and things grew very quickly. And over the course of 2 years, really built the value to a point where I thought if I sold it, I could really sort of cash out, sort of take an exit. I think when you're running a business like this, it gets frustrating, it gets tough. The highs are super high and the lows are super lows. I like to say that when things are good, it's like maximized by 10. When things are bad, it's maximized by 10. I just kind of really wanted to move back to where I'm from, Vermont. I was getting a little tired of DC, but ultimately seeing the value of the company, I wanted to sell. So I called back on Paul, who became my broker, and who's become a friend over the years and a real mentor, a real support. And Paul and I found a way to list the business on this website called Biz Buy Sell, and we got a bite. And the only thing about the bite was that we got bitten a little too hard. I really got fucked. Yeah, it was it was a great deal of fucking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what did you learn in that process? I think you talked to me about selling your business at first, and I was a little bit reluctant on the value of it, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. What you were able to get, which was over the $200,000 mark for a business that seemed a little bit still shaky. It wasn't fully stabilized. You didn't have a big team built out yet, and it wasn't where it could have been if you worked on the business for another year or two. You got this really great offer, much more than you and I both anticipated, right? And it became an offer that was too good to be true, and because it didn't work out the way the numbers looked at the beginning. So how did it play out in terms of getting fucked, and what are some of the red flags that you can see now that you should have saw coming if you only had known earlier, right? If you weren't so hopeful, right? We always want to believe in the best of people, but some people just tell us what we want to hear and they don't follow through. So what were some of these red flags that you can advise our listeners on, that it can be a good cautionary tale and a good lesson for those who might end up in a similar situation?
Yeah, totally. Well, I appreciate the perspective, and to just give a little more insight. So I think you and I back in June of 2023, which was a month before we sold the business, I think you and I both agreed that the business was worth about $50,000. And Paul thought it was worth a lot more, which I thought was awesome. How am I not going to think that's awesome? You know, Paul said, let's sell it for 135K. Let's list it for 135K and we'll see what happens. So we listed it and somebody came in with an offer of 250K. And at first we were a little bit curious why that number, you know, if it's listed for 135K, why go above and beyond? Then we realized there was a little bit of a bidding war. And I think Paul did a really good job at kind of explaining to a few prospective buyers that like, look, like we got a lot of offers in at 225. We got a lot of offers in at 200. Even if that wasn't the case, you know, it really made a bidding war, which was very helpful. So the one thing that happened was we asked for proof of funds, and the buyer showed proof of funds of $250,000, which was for the sale of the business. And the other thing was he proposed, or the buyer proposed rather, to spread this out over a 12-month period. Now, at the time, we didn't have a problem with that because Paul was going to receive his broker fee up front. And we thought, you know, look, if this guy's serious, it's going to be a good deal. So we hired a lawyer to make a really, really, really tight and binding contract. Fast forward a few months, the first three payments came in seamlessly. And in November, one half of the monthly payment came in seamlessly. And then I got a note from the buyer who said, look, I'm not going to pay you anymore. You know, I can't control the business. And I have, he said he has cancer, and he said he can't pay for the business anymore. So, you know, of course, we had to do what was right, my team and I, to make sure that we were compensated for the business. But, you know, look, you know, the real thing, and I think this is kind of, you know, where you were alluding to is what can somebody in my situation do, either turning back the clock or going forward, to prevent a situation like this where you sell your baby, you sell your most valuable asset you've ever had, and then somebody screws you over and stops paying for it. And I think that, you know, the easy answer is you take payment up front. I think the easy answer is, look, if you're going to sell a business, you take payment up front. Now, I would have loved to sell the business for 135, get paid up front, rather than 250, get paid over the course of a year had I knew what was coming.
Yeah,
But I think, you know,
yeah, like you probably ended up walking away with 50, right?
so I walked away with 65. And look, back, the irony, back to what you and I were saying before, back to what I was saying before, if the business was valued at $50,000, if that really, really, truly was the value of the business, and I sold it for 65, I'm walking away with 65. I'm happy, right? And again, no one got hurt, no one died. Like this is about money, so you really want to have some perspective here. But looking back, I definitely would have preferred that I would have been a little more cautious, a little bit less naive. I think, as you know, when a shiny object comes before your face, you're like, oh my God, this is, look at this. This is so much money. I want this, and sometimes you sort of lose track of some of the most important things that you got to, wrap your fingers around. And that's what I didn't do. So the big lesson, and, I always encourage agency owners to know that your product is valuable, but you got to take the money up front.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm helping a few businesses transact right now, and I don't think we would take any less than 70% up front, and then the rest can be based off performance and based off some sort of contingencies. But yeah, like if you're trying to sell a business, what's that saying? Bird in the hand is better than three in the bush, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good though that you were able to move past that experience and start another agency. So what are you up to now, and what are you going to do differently this time around? And what is different this time around? Because I think the first time you had a pretty unique situation.
Yeah. So the first time around, I was able to take over a client list. So I was able to really get things going quickly. That was actually through the real estate photography Facebook thread that we all know and love. Somebody was basically selling their business back in early 2021, and I hopped on that. That's what brought me to DC. So I didn't have to start from scratch then with Vertical Bird. I was able to get some giddy up at the beginning, but having what happened taking place in December with the Vertical Bird sale and all that drama, I was forced to really start from scratch. And I hadn't planned to enter the real estate media world again. I had planned to take some time off and really figure out sort of what I wanted to do. But, realizing that that this had taken place, and that, I had to build another asset for myself. I had to continue building, and making a company for myself that I was really happy about and one that could thrive. And so I started Real Producers, REEL, Real, because we make reels. We do a lot of reels. It's fun. And I've totally started from scratch. I'm starting it, or I have started in the Vermont, New Hampshire area. I do live in Vermont, and it is a totally different thing, Brendan, let me tell you, than the Washington, D.C. real estate market. Um, so, I mean, if social media in Washington, D.C. is a great way to get clients, which it is, and factoring in up here in Vermont, New Hampshire, that so few people are on social media in the real estate world, it's a whole different type of client acquisition, whole different type of world. So it's taken a few months to get things in place, but again, through Acre and the support I've been offered through learning from the DC real estate business that you really have to have systems in place. You have to have systems in place to manage your business accordingly. That's helped me get further with Real Producers. That's helped me grow Real Producers. Really treating it as a company more than as a personal venture. I think one of the most important things that you've taught me is that no one cares about me. It's about the business. So if you're going to be shy, it's probably because you think people are going to judge you. If you're going to do client outreach, you have to realize you're doing it on behalf of the business. So I've been able to do a lot more sales outreach through not so much caring about what people think of me, not facing rejection. It's those sorts of things that have helped.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I've seen you grow tremendously in the last couple years, and you've been through ups and downs. And at some point, you wanted to travel the world, and you were able to do a little bit of that, right? Like, where'd you go during the couple months where you had that freedom of like, oh, I got my payday, and like, what about now? Like, what is balance for you? What makes sense for you right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, long before I was into real estate media and marketing, I had a hotel photography job, which was international, and it took me to a fair amount of countries. I was based in Dubai, and this was before social media was like a thing. This is before influencers were a thing. This was like early to mid 2010s. I'm an old man now.
You're not that old, dude.
Um, and so it was international hotel photography for the Jumeirah Group based in Dubai, and I'd be going around the world doing their shoots and really magazine print, really kind of geared a little more towards street photography instead of shooting the rooms. But I always had that passion after that to travel. And once I realized through the work that I was doing out there, this is again long before the real estate media. Once I realized the work I was doing took me to so many countries, I realized that if I really tried hard and really spent some time, pursuing going to every country in the world, that I could go to every country in the world. And I know you've asked me before why, and I
Why, Dave?
don't.
Why? Why are you trying to go to every country? And you were telling me you were trying to go to like 50 countries in 30 days. I'm just like, aren't you trying to enjoy the countries? Like,
Well, so to be fair, yeah. So you bring that up. It's a good point. While we're on the subject of full transparency, when I so yeah, a few months ago, I did go to about 30 countries, and I spent about 3 months doing it. And some of those countries were Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. I went to Myanmar, went to Malaysia, went to the Solomon Islands, went to Tonga, went to Palau. But I think what you're referring to is there was a time in 2022 where I was running Vertical Bird, and I was really stressed, really just really having a rough time. And I was thinking like, okay, what's a good escape plan? Well, let me talk to Brendan. Let me go to every country in the, let me go to 50 countries over 3 months, get my butt out of here, come back, pick up the pieces that never fell, and resume Vertical Bird. No, it was a little bit.
that was a stress response. Like, if you know what you know now, what would you have done differently to prevent yourself to get to a situation where you wanted to just flee the business and say, hey, I want to go travel the world, I can't do this anymore? Like, what would you have set up differently and put in place to make the business a little bit more manageable?
Right. I probably would have done one of two things, or both. The first thing is I probably would have said to myself, look, what's really happening here is I just need a little bit of a break. So I had a couple employees. So what I really could have done and probably should have done was, maybe take 4-day trip to Miami, or take a 4-day trip to look, go back to Vermont for 4 days, go back to Vermont for a week, go to Seattle for a week, go to Omaha for a week. Hell, I mean, just get out, right? Just get out for a couple days because the business is here and the business is running, and you can't just abandon your clients. And when this is something you've built, you have to keep it going, right? The other thing, the other thing I think I did do, and I should have done, and I ended up doing it was, and not to toot your horn, but really invest in Acre Partner and invest in the resources I had, invest in the support I had, and really build the business, build the business to a point where I can, work remote. And hell, if I did that, if someone could work fully remote managing their real estate media company, you could really be wherever you want. An example is, I know that you're on the, you're not running aerial canvas in the way that you used to be, but you're in Medellin, Colombia, which I pronounced correctly.
Yes,
Um,
yes, you did.
and you're doing great out there. I think it's very easy to get into a position where escape is like the easy thing to think about, and we all love the idea of escaping. I think when things get rough, but get your systems in place, get your booking platforms in place, get your equipment in place, make sure your employees know where things are, make sure all your clients are happy. It's those sorts of things that can actually take your mind from thinking escape to really being back in the present. Sometimes you don't realize how good you have things. And sometimes you just get down, and you really need to understand that you're valuable.
Exactly. You just gotta take a break to get that perspective. Like traveling definitely has helped me do that. Just and sometimes it does it in the opposite way where I'm like, I want to work so bad. I've been traveling for 2 weeks. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not climbing a mountain and actually achieving what I want to achieve around my life and business. Like there's only so much relaxing I can do. So I totally get it though. But taking a break, that perspective is nice, and sometimes that perspective helps propel you even more. Taking a
I
week
mean,
off and then coming back to business and going all in and putting in 120% when you were already gassed out doing 60. You might as well take the week off and then go back at be at 120.
if I was smart, I would have gone to Iraq and built the first ever real estate media company out there, but I wasn't.
You would have been. I mean, depends on the timing, right?
Baghdad Media.
You're silly, Dave. So, what about like collaboration? What have you experienced so far in terms of collaborating with individual other agency owners like Bronson, and then you know your time at Fly Listed as an employee? How has all these different perspectives allowed you to grow as a leader within your business?
Well, there's a photographer in Washington D.C. His name is Mario Mineros, and he and I once had a conversation. And although these are some of the things that that you should know. He told me something that really hit, and he said, "Look, there's enough money for everybody. Let's collab. Like let's toss each other referrals. Let's collab." He and I, built a good relationship, but the real person I built a very good relationship with from that, and really realizing that perspective that collaboration and working together can help really help build was Bronson Carmichael, who you mentioned. And Bronson runs, for those who don't know, Bronson owns and runs CPV Media, which he's transcended into one of the real prominent real estate media companies in the country. But it was his intention as well to work with agency owners who are sort of contemporaries, agency owners who are in the same, kind of making the same amount of revenue as he is. And at the time, he and I were making similar revenue numbers to work the referrals, to help each other out, to give each other advice, to lean on each other for editing support. Bronson once wrote me and said, "Look, I need these photos edited today. My editors are sick. Can you do it?" I did it. One time I said to Bronson, "Can you do this shoot for me? Because I'm not in town." And Bronson and I would always have each other's backs. There are other agency owners in the country who I know as well, and I know I would be there for them. They'd be there for me. Don Cavanaugh in Massachusetts, Paul and Evan in Florida. Now at this point, Paul and Evan used to live in New Hampshire. Fly Listed is still the biggest company in New Hampshire for real estate marketing, but before they were down in Miami, or in Florida rather, South Florida in Boca, they would toss me referrals. They would know, they would trust me. Sometimes you get a referral and it doesn't always work out. And, that's happened to me a couple times where things just didn't go right. But but you learn from that, and you really make sure that just through that and through the experience, it doesn't happen again. But I think knowing there's enough money for everybody, and that agency owners can really help each other out just by knowing each other, just by presence, just by community. If I ever need something, I know that Don is there. I don't need anything from Don at the moment, but I know that if I ever needed support, even if it was to say, Don, look, man, I'm having a rough fucking time today. Do you ever have these days, and what do you do? And I text you sometimes and say the same thing. It's the community that we have, and Acre has engrossed the whole community, and really built a very very formidable circle of
You
agency
were
owners.
one of the first partners. How has Acre in your eyes evolved and changed? Because you were here when it was just you and me, Dave. Like it was you,
Yeah.
me, and like I think Bronson and I were talking and a few others. And Acre was just it was a dream, right? It was like, hey, why can't we share our resources? Why can't we collaborate more and learn from each other and also, build faster together? So how have you seen Acre change since you first joined and where it's at now?
Well, I think technology has changed a lot of things in a way. I think that when you first started Acre, there wasn't Monday, and that's a small example. Like Monday wasn't around, so there wasn't as much opportunity to kind of organize things as well as there are now. And when at the beginning, you were there. I mean, you've been there since day one. But if I needed to ask you for for a template for a job application, you would send that to me. If I needed some help on building building a price list for certain clients, like you would help me with that. The things that you offered through Acre, such as also the support from Tonimo and the other affiliates of Acre, were so helpful from the start. I couldn't imagine building without Acre by my side, and I really mean that because A, for the support, but B, you guys really care. And from somebody who built Aerial Canvas into a company that, I know in 2021 was making $10 million a year. I mean, I know it's gone up now in spades, but
Actually, it's
knowing
gone
that,
down, but it's okay. The market's been challenging. We were at 7 million in 2021, and last year we did around 4. The market got cut in half, so we still outperformed relatively to where we were, and it got more competitive. But that's actually something that's okay. I think that's a lot of agency owners, especially if they're in a growth mindset, they're like losing doesn't sit well with them, and losing, declining revenue or taking a step back. But that's life. Life's gonna throw you punches, even if you got everything right. Like even if you're Steve Jobs, there's still cancer, right? There's still
Mhm.
something that you get hit with that you will never ever expect. And when you do really well, like you said, it's like 10x. You're on a high. You think nothing can stop you. And that's definitely where we were when we were growing Aerial Canvas from the 1.7 million to the 5 million to the $7 million, and just keep compounding. And we made a lot of decisions based off that growth never stopping. And I think that led us to make some poor decisions. One is not reinvesting enough in our current team and trying to always grab at new opportunities. And we in that process we lost some of our key players that, if we had figured out ways to keep them around, I think we would be a little bit further ahead than trying to go after new opportunities and spending money on expansion. Why not
Sure.
spend money on expanding from within? And so that's really changed our business philosophy, and where we allocate capital now is reinvesting a lot more into our team, as opposed to reinvesting into our business, which sometimes those upgrades and those investments don't stick around, right? Like because the foundation isn't concrete enough. And so that's something that I think is a lesson for a lot of agency owners out there. Is like it's okay to take a couple steps back and want to climb up that mountain, but know that you have to. It's inevitable that you fall a few times and to learn how to climb better. And so I think you shouldn't feel bad for where you're at as well. Like it's been a challenge on our end. There, Colby and I gave up our salaries for a good 6 months, um, entirely, and I still don't take a salary because I don't work there actively. I take a profit distribution, and we are profitable once again. But there was a time for half a year where we were running a huge deficit, and we didn't know if we were going to go bankrupt or not. And that's
And
because the whole market pulled back 50%, and we were spending money like we were going to do 8 million while the market was pulling back. And as you can imagine, while you spend more money while the whole business is on a decline, and then you're like, oh shit, let me adjust to where the trend is. No matter how big you are, even if you're Tesla, right? If the macroeconomic conditions of like the demand for cars and the affordability and like where people are and wanting to buy EVs, the infrastructure of the US, that's more important than like, just running a good company, because the tide is going to lift all boats, or no matter how big of a boat you are, if you're the Titanic, if there's a big enough iceberg, you're still gonna get your ship sunk, right? So
and that's the great thing about Acre as well, is really hearing those sorts of stories from you, because it would be one thing if you came in, just telling your students, look, like, we're going to build you up. Aerial Canvas was successful. Here are the numbers. Let's go. But you've always dug in. You've always given us examples. You've always given us the full bones truth. And look, even if you were making 500K a year at Acre, like, somebody who sees that, really is encouraged. Somebody wants to work with you. Like, you really built Aerial Canvas.
knowing what not to do is actually more important than knowing what to do. Knowing, like, tons of companies that are successful have failed because of exuberance, of overconfidence, of hyper growth, of taking on too many clients at a time, too many efforts, too many like products.
I
My
think
sister
Vertical
worked.
Bird is the example there. You're talking about Vertical Bird.
My sister worked at Robinhood, a great big company. But when the market correction happened two years ago, and Robinhood has been kind of in a hole for the last 2 years, they slashed 70% of the products and the projects that they were working on, and they said, "Hey, let's focus. Let's go back to basics. Let's focus on what really our clients care about and what they want, and maybe focus on one or two side projects, but not like the 10, 20 that they had going on." So, like, that's when you see huge companies doing that, going back to basics, and huge companies like Amazon and Tesla making 10, 15% cuts to their staff and workforce. That no business, no matter how big, is impenetrable or uh, impermeable to the weather. The weather being the markets, the weather being the bigger conditions of the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you've always said it's about the journey.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that's really good words to live by. Like, it's about, because look where Amazon is now, and look where Uber is now, look where Tesla is now. I think you
Yeah,
really
they
have to
went through
embrace the struggles.
like a lot of shitty hard times. Like, Amazon stock was at 120 back in the dot-com boom, and dropped all the way down to like $4 or $5. That's like dropping 95%. That's like
Crazy.
Vertical Bird going from being worth 100K to being worth $5,000, and now see where they're at, right? And same
Now
with
it's worth a
Tesla.
lot
Tesla
less.
was almost going to go bankrupt, like back when they were scaling up the Model 3 and Model S multiple times. People didn't know if they were going to work out. It was the most shorted stock, for a long time. And the perseverance is really what got them to where they're at now. And I see that in you, Dave. You have a lot of perseverance. Like, even on your, I think there's a beautiful saying that I read recently. On your days that you're feeling 40%, as long as you gave it 40%, you gave it 100. And that's what I see of you. Like, you always still give it 100, even on your days. Like, when you're at 40, you give it 40. When you're at 50, you give it 50. And when you're at 120, I've seen you put in the 120, percent days as well. So tell me a little bit more about, like, what are some of the lessons that you learned in the last year, going through all of these different troughs of sorrow, as well as like high, like these highs, these crazy highs of of selling your business, the crazy lows of going through a lawsuit that you just won, right? But like, what does that mean? And what is the next frontier for real producers, your new company?
Well, the one thing I've learned is what a good lawyer looks like. that's now I have a lot of lawyer friends, so it's good to have them in the arsenal. But yeah, so yeah, to fill everyone in, it did become a pretty intense lawsuit. We did sue for the remainder of the owed money, and we did get awarded the money. Now we have to collect it. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, I mean, you really you gotta pick yourself up when you're low. It did put me in a rut for a few months, and it did take a lot out of me, and it was just so unexpected because one day you're getting paid a lot of money, and the next day you get an email saying that you're no longer going to get paid. And then what happened was actually the buyer, because I call him the buyer, because our agreement was that he had to return the business if he defaulted. He ended up purposely bringing the company to the ground, and then made a whole new business using the intellectual property and the clients from Vertical Bird, effectively giving me back nothing. There were loans that were taken out. So I just didn't. I was just so naive, and that really didn't help things out. I think with real producers, again, taking every shoot one at a time, keeping your mind in one place when you're on the job, really focusing on how you can help each client, That's a big thing that you've taught us at Acre Partner. What can I do for you? How can I help you? Not what can I do to earn your money? Because the other thing that you've taught us at Acre Partner is really sort of about culture and people. What people like, what people don't like, how you can be more a part of community, how you can excel more in the public sphere based on your communication with people who you don't know. And today we're having at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, we're having a cold call phone session where I'm going to make about 400 cold calls and on the Acre the sales blitz. And you really got to push yourself. You really, really, really have to have goals that you set. My goal every day is make 3 to 5 clients every day. Do 25 emails at the beginning of the day, do 25 emails in the middle of the day, do another 50 before the end of the day, get on the phone. I've invested in Growth Chat, which you oversee, have the VA send some cold outreach, get some responses, get on the phone. Hey, Nadia, how can I help you? Hey, Nadia, it looks like you have a listing coming up at 47 Ledge Road. I would love to take part in being your photographer if you don't have someone you already use. It's really understanding more about people that's helped me address people in a more formidable way to get their business, while understanding that it's the care that you're providing them, genuinely, the genuine care you're providing them, that's going to lead to getting the money.
Yeah, and you've unlocked some things that worked for you better than like doing just what. There's so many strategies, right, that we teach and we coach around when it comes to growing revenue. What are the strategies that you found work the best for you? Because I think you unlocked one recently that you're like, hey, dude, I'm gonna keep doing this. This one's awesome.
Right. So I was joking before about the cold calls. I'm actually very apprehensive to make cold calls. I get really nervous, and I'm not the best. I'm not the best public speaker over the phone. I'm not the best on the spot. But the one thing I did was I joined a BNI group. BNI is Business Network International. It is internet. It is all over the world. There's about 10,000 chapters. What it is, it's a meeting you attend weekly with the same people who each have their own profession, and the idea is you toss around referrals. So every week we meet on Zoom, and I'm the real estate media. I'm the real estate media person. There's a real estate agent. There's a plumber. There's a contractor. There's a lender. Everyone has their own profession. I've been directly asking in the meeting, look, I want to be connected to Karen DeMoss. I want to be connected to Evan Pierce. I want to be connected to Leah McLaury. Instead of saying to a client, I want to be connected to another agent who can book me for their service, who can book me for their listings. I want John Doe. Do you know John Doe? Can you please connect me to John Doe today? And that's
Boom.
helped a lot, really
Yeah.
growing the referrals.
Intention, right? Like I think that's something we cover in our referral strategy is like what names come to mind. At the very least, ask them what names come to mind and not just like a very broad ask. I was like, hey, whenever you think of me, refer me some business. It's like, no, which agents do you know that have active listings that are coming up? What are some agents that are up and coming that, I can potentially align with and help them create some social reels? You guys, like what are you guys doing around video, and being very intentional with the ask and seeing like, hey, why don't you invest in video? And that's usually the best way to start those conversations and evolve a conversation, is being very intentional with where are you trying to take the conversation, right? Is this conversation about challenging someone's beliefs around video? Is it around getting an introduction to someone that they might know? Is it around, like helping them understand and bridge the gap on like what they're looking to do and what you can offer? And like actually having the intention to glue that conversation together. Because I think a lot of people, when they cold call for the first time, they have the nice guy mentality. Let me just be nice. But being nice can only get you so far if you don't have intention. Like
Hmm.
if you like there's like that's you've probably seen it, in like the movies. There's the nice guy who's afraid to go for ask the girl out to prom or ask the girl out to be his girlfriend. Don't be that nice guy in business, because you're never going to get the deal or the client or the project if you don't go in for the ask.
That was me in that movie, by the way, and I got rejected. Yeah. Um, there was a movie that came out about 10 years ago or so called Beasts of the Southern Wild, and Roger Ebert, one of the more acclaimed film critics of all time, to my opinion, said that, look, if you've got it, they'll find you. So I try not to make things too complicated and difficult. I try and really just sort of do the job, get the job done for the agent, get the listing shot well, and sort of go from there. Take it really slow, go from there. Instead of at the beginning, kind of asking if I can do all these things for them. Really, just get the job done well, and let them tell other people about it. Um, I'm lucky to be in an area where, like, when a listing is posted, like, I'm in a really small area, and so when there's a listing, everyone knows about it. It's like the talk of the town. Oh my God, this 1,700 square foot 2 bedroom junkyard just got listed. Wow, everybody, look at this. But but if you do a shoot, you do it well up here in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. People can see it, and people talk about it. So bringing the things from Washington D.C., the whole volume thing, listings there are much different. They're
It's a different
you,
pace of business out there versus Vermont. Like, why not do it back in Washington D.C.? I think you were talking about moving to Boston, but like, what about Vermont led you back there, and what do you like about it?
Well, I was thinking about moving back to DC. Of course, that was before I found out that Vertical Bird had been in debt with been about $20,000 of loans taken out that the buyer hadn't paid. So I was going to take Vertical Bird back. I decided against that. So I'm still up here. I was going to move to Boston because we do have clients in Boston at Real Producers, and I do make the trip often to Boston. To I'll do 3 or 4 listings in one day, come back up, and I'm not too far from Boston. I'm about an hour and a half, but um, the business has been coming up here. There's been a lot of business that I've been getting up here, and it's kept me here. And really trying to get those 10,000, 20,000 dollar a month revenue streams, and really grow the business like that. That's what I'm going for. I think the lesson that Acre Partner has taught me as well, and I'm always saying what Acre Partner has taught me is that, and it's a decent company, Acre Partner. It's okay. I've learned a lot.
Right.
Acre Partner is awesome. The biggest thing that I've learned is that wherever you are in the country, you can make things happen. Whether you're in Anchorage, Alaska, whether you're in the middle of Arkansas or the middle of Vermont, there's someone in France who works with Acre Partner. So
Yeah.
wherever you are, you can make things happen.
What? Yeah, I appreciate you providing that perspective on like abundance. I think that's something that leads back to your story of the guy who told you that there is enough business out there for everyone, as long as and why not collaborate? So that abundance mentality. is definitely something that has helped me in business and in life. Understanding like how to just be a better human being and sharing, what I have with others. Even if it's not within business, within family, within my friends and circle there. What's on the other end of the abundance mentality? What are things that have hurt you in the last couple years around mindset, around your challenges that are struggles that you've learned to overcome or you're still learning to adapt around? I think all of us have our demons and have our, like, as awesome as my life looks, there's days where I question my purpose. I question my reality and I question what I'm doing. How have you been able to navigate that inner, like, evil or demon or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it? Like, how have you been able to overcome those types of challenges?
Well, the challenges that I think you're talking about, from my perspective, the challenges are like rejection, losing clients, getting into rifts with clients, doing work that clients don't appreciate sometimes, like things like that have always bummed me out. What I've done to overcome some of the just the frustration and the sadness that comes from, it can come from anything. It can come from what I just said. It can come from traffic in the middle of DC that's getting you late to an appointment. It can come from having a rough conversation with your parents. A client doesn't pay an invoice. What are you going to do? This stuff bums you out. No matter the outcome, it bums you out for a period of time. I've developed a really good work-life balance over the last year or so, and a lot of that. So so eating healthy, walking 10,000 steps a day, and watching 2 movies a day, one in the morning when you wake up and one before you go to bed, a full movie,
You love your
very
movie.
different than the other. Yeah, I mean, this morning I watched Nebraska, and now I'm on to Pleasantville, which is a 1998 drama with Reese Witherspoon. So, um, padding your day, keeping your mind a little bit separated from the business when you don't need to have your head in the business. And when I was in Washington D.C., 24 hours a day, or to be completely real, the hours that I was awake, every hour that I was awake was business, and it burned me out. It'll burn someone out. You got to get the balance. You got to have things in your life that drive you. For someone, it could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be having a pet, but really having things that really drive you to make you want to build the business more, aside from the things within the business that get you excited.
Exactly. Like, I think that's something that I also had to overcome. I don't think I burned out per se. I, I was passionate. I was driven. I worked 80 hours a week for 2 years straight. I still had more momentum to get after it, but my business partner just provided a different perspective, and there's always that balance that we need to seek out. Because I went 180 degrees the other direction. I started, partying, hanging out with friends, like looking at, like, getting into stocks and then, gambling there, and crypto, and I got my highs from the achievement I got in business through things that weren't really constructive and purposeful. And it was something that I think needed to happen for me to find my balance. And now I live with my girlfriend and a puppy. I live in Medellin. I manage multiple businesses remotely, and I put in a reasonable 40 to 55 hours a week. And I'm trying to work smarter. Instead of figuring out what and how, I'm trying to figure out who can I bring on, who can I consult myself to level up to where I need to be, who can I hire. And instead of figuring out like the details, I'm trying to bring in the right people into my sphere. Like, you've seen Jenna, you've seen Adrian become part of our consulting and coaching community, um, and that's something that I've learned over time. It's really who you can surround yourself with, and the how and the what and everything else figures itself out over time. As long as you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves and do the work. That's
Sure.
definitely, you can't just rely on people to do it 100%, especially if you're starting to build. But yeah, that's definitely something I learned myself. Dave, is that balance of like finding the right people, investing in the right things, taking enough time for myself, and not making it all about money, 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 or making it all about like, travel, 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 but finding that balance. Last year I was able to go to Europe for three months. I was able to travel and work remotely in Argentina and Brazil, and also do a mastermind in Tulum, and also take my family to Cancun and Tulum as well. And that is like, if I were to if I were to ask my former self when I was like 21 what a dream life looks like, that's definitely more or less a dream type of outcome. So, and then it's perspective, right? That's that humility that you have to get the appreciation that you have to build for what you do have. And I think you and I have discussed it. Like, the journey is the most beautiful part. Like, you're going through, a more challenging financial situation, rebuilding the business and having to reinvest a lot of your efforts and time. But like, you have another beautiful story to tell. That when you start climbing this mountain and you reach the first summit and then beyond, that you can tell your team, I did all of this. And that's why, I'm here to teach you, and I'm here to grow with you now.
Yeah, and absolutely. And next time you go to Cancun, please bring me.
You're invited, obviously. You were
I'm
invited
invited.
first.
I think everyone listening and watching this podcast should know two things: is that you got to have fun, and that Brendan should invite me to the Galapagos Islands next time he goes. Those two things.
Galapagos sounds cool. I heard there's turtles there. My girlfriend likes turtles.
But it's all about the journey, and it really is. Things take time, and and you got to look at things in a certain way. Like, look, like, okay, my business got taken and torn to the ground, but like, again, no one's, my family is my I have family. I have a dog. I live in a safe home. I'm not in Gaza right now. I'm not in, I'm not fighting war. I'm not, struggling to find food. I'm not in the Congo mining for cobalt to make iPhones, for Apple. So you got to look at that too. No escaping, hang in there, and take advantage of the people who care about you, or not take advantage of them. Take advantage of this, value the support that you
Yeah,
get from people who care about you. Yeah,
yeah. That made sense to me. I got it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's cool to see your journey, Dave. Like, you definitely like have grown so much in the last 2 3 years that I've had the privilege of supporting your growth and seeing the ups and downs. And I think you learned at every stage, and you're that much stronger for it, right? Like, if I threw you back in any of your previous situations, whether it was like that, I know you had like an altercation with one of your client business partners. Her husband was like threatening you because she owed you money. And it's just like, that's ridiculous. Like, why is this husband threatening you? But you learn from that. You learn to pick and choose your battles, right? And you learn. I told you, Dave. Like, it's just time to move on. Like, at this point, it's more harm than good than to try to pursue, a fight with someone who's unreasonable. And I
yeah.
think you've had a lot of beautiful lessons along the way, and you've also got to experience life. Like, traveling this year, or this last year, you got a taste of that, and you're fueled by a new purpose right now with Real Producers. What's the future look like, you think? Like, what's this next year look like for you? What do you have on the agenda?
Well, I'm going to keep building the company out best I can. Currently, I'm working on a couple of screenplays. I used to write screenplays before I did photography. I wrote two. I sold them both. So always keeping really taking advantage of the visual mind that I have, creating content in Vermont. But I want to see Real Producers grow. I want to see it take steam, and I want to really be able to put myself in a position where I can look back and say, wow, shit was fucked up before, but look where things are now. I'm happy. I'm not going to say I'm financially successful. I'm not going to say I'm making tons of money. I'm not going to say I impress people and I made people happy, but I'm happy and I'm comfortable.
That's
And
beautiful. What's
and
one life lesson you would want to teach to those who are listening? And if you were to leave the world with one piece of advice, what would that be?
is that a lovely smile means nothing. Really, you can't take people at face value. You really got to not let people take advantage of you. You really got to not be naive. You really got to realize that everyone you're dealing with is somebody who could change your life for the better or for the worse. It turns out that the guy that I got screwed by had a lovely smile, some of the best teeth you'll find. I think it was Colgate. Yeah, I think it was Colgate toothpaste. Yeah, yeah. But you're gonna run across a lot of people who are gonna try and take advantage of you. The best you can do is not let them by uh, just keeping a strong guard and not letting
I mean,
yourself fall for
you
things.
value being better at qualifying, right? Like qualifying the right opportunities for you, figuring out like your situation and what's going to actually serve you, and also like doing your due diligence on people's actions, right? People will talk. My employees, there's a lot of people like I've also experienced myself that told me everything I wanted to hear. Just wanted to like be my best friend and like just take advantage of my kindness. And even today, I keep lending my friends money, friends, right? But you got to look at the root cause. You got to like investigate a little bit deeper. How did they get into that situation that they're asking you for money? And is that actual root cause solved for? Otherwise, you're just a temporary band aid and you're never going to be the solution. And chances are, if they can't pay back their current debt, how are they going to pay back you? And
Right.
so, that's definitely something I learned the hard way, and I keep learning. And it's tough when you're a nice guy and you want to always have the benefit of the doubt and believe the best in people. But I think that lesson that you just said, it's just like don't take everything for face value. Look at the track record, look at the qualifications, go through an actual process to interview to qualify someone into your life and measure what success looks like. Does the relationship serve you? Are the results that you're looking to create there? When it comes to business, are there KPIs? Are there objectives and key results you're looking to drive? When it comes to relationships, does this person bring you joy? Does this person bring you sadness and anxiety and stress? If it doesn't serve you, like is it time to let it go, or is it time to find something better that does serve you?
And I think slowing down gives you an upper hand and helps you achieve all of those. Just slow down a little bit. Slow down. We love making money. We love when clients book us. We love getting that text message where the first thing you see is I have a listing coming up at, you know, we we love that. But slow down. It's all going to be okay. Just slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that slowing down concept is super important. Like if you just take the time to climb up to the top of the tree, you can see the whole forest and where to go and where the mountain is, right? But if you're
Especially you in Medellin. Yeah.
exactly, but if you're beneath the foliage and you just hacking away at trying to carve a path, are you really going to be the pathfinder, or are you going to be the pathfinder by taking the time to climb up the tree and see where you want to go? And that's something that we really enjoy helping agency owners with, is like gaining perspective. What are the next one, two, three steps that you could take to actually build and work on the business, right? And not just day in and day out, go through the motions, because that can be exhausting. That's where burnout happens, is if you're just going through the motions and just doing whatever you're doing because you're used to it, or that's what you only known.
Assuming you're talking about the Nissan Pathfinder, the only thing better than that's an Altima. That's all I can say.
Love the jokes, Dave. All right, brother. It was a pleasure having you on the Partners Podcast. I think there's a lot we can take away from the lessons of your growth, and what not to do is more important sometimes than what to do. And I think we learned a lot there as well. Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing those
Thanks so much.
lessons.
Thanks so much, Bennett, for having me on. I really appreciate it and always appreciate you and your support and looking forward to the future.